Fala, Bills Mafia, Fernando Schmude com mais um Lead in the Charge via Buffalo Rumblings e hoje com a satisfação de poder contar com a participação do Greg Tompsett do Cover One, que vai estar se juntando com a gente em breve aí, a partir das 10 horas aqui do Brasil, 9 horas da costa leste lá dos Estados Unidos. Ele vai estar se juntando com a gente para falar um pouco da tabela dos Bills, né, do que ele achou da tabela, Rookie Minicamps, algumas opiniões sobre elenco. Sempre legal trocar uma ideia com o Greg, que é muito conhecedor principalmente de questões de cap e tudo mais. Então tem algumas perguntas para ele sobre essa questão de como os Bills podem de repente se reforçar um pouco mais ainda, né? Sempre a gente sabe que o elenco já está bem montado e já partindo para a parte de competições internas e tudo mais, mas a gente sempre quer ficar por dentro, né, de como que de repente a equipe pode continuar se reforçando, adicionar alguma peça a mais de repente no pass rush, de repente, se necessário, né, e não der certo a disputa pela posição de middle linebacker, na posição de linebacker também, né? Então tudo isso é algo que a gente vai trocar uma ideia com o Greg Tompsett, e deixa eu até anunciar para a galera que acompanha em inglês, né? What's up, Bills Mafia, Fernando Schmude here, and Greg Tompsett will join in 20 minutes, okay? So I'm starting the first part in Portuguese, talking to Portuguese-speaking countries and Latin America, but in 20 or in 15 minutes, Greg will join us and talk some Bills, some schedule, and rookie minicamp. So feel free to stay with us, and it's going to be in English soon. Bills Mafia, what's up, Spin? Good to see you. Greg's going to join soon, and I'm going to continue in English, okay? Spin está curioso aqui para saber como que o Greg vai fazer. No, he can't speak Portuguese, Spin, but it's a good question. I'm gonna ask him if he practiced a little bit and if he improved his Portuguese since he's been here for a couple of times already. Okay, but it's gonna be in English in 15 minutes, okay, brother? For now, in Portuguese. Mafia, é o seguinte, essa primeira parte, né? Eu vou falar rapidamente das novidades da semana aí, até o Greg poder se juntar com a gente. Então, foi uma semana que saiu a tabela dos Bills, né? E a gente pôde saber mais ou menos aí. A gente já sabia quem que os Bills iriam enfrentar, mas a gente pôde saber quando que é a bye, a gente pôde saber quando que a gente enfrenta os nossos adversários de divisão, quantos jogos de prime time. Então, todas essas informações saíram nessa semana. E na terça-feira eu vou estar fazendo um Lead in the Charge especial em português, totalmente em português, falando aí minha previsão, jogo a jogo, né, analisando a tabela, falando minha opinião sobre a tabela e analisando jogo a jogo, para até mesmo comparando com o que eu fiz. Eu fiz isso na temporada passada, vamos ver como é que foi o resultado final, e aí a gente vai fazer um preview aí, né, da temporada, jogo a jogo, né? Então hoje eu vou falar um pouquinho de tabela com o Greg, mas em inglês, obviamente, e na terça-feira tudo em português. Então a gente vai poder trocar essa ideia legal na terça-feira, jogo a jogo, analisar tudo. Hoje eu vou trocar uma ideia com o Greg sobre isso e algumas coisas mais. Tivemos minicamps nesse final de semana, rookie minicamps, né? Desde sexta-feira, o Gilson já dando o palpite dele aqui, ó, Bills 12-5 até um 13-4. Vamos fazer na terça-feira essa análise, Gilson, para ver se encaixa mais ou menos isso aí. Go Bills to Richard Bush. Richard, in English soon, okay? As soon as Greg joins, it's going to be in English, but for now in Portuguese. Então, gente, minicamps, os novatos podendo treinar em Buffalo. Esses minicamps não contam com muita coisa no sentido dos jogadores... eles nem podem, né, ter contato com os veteranos por enquanto. Foi um minicamp de novatos. Quem que participa desse minicamp? Jogadores draftados pelos Bills, jogadores assinados que não foram draftados, né, undrafted free agents, se juntando para treinar juntamente, e alguns jogadores veteranos mesmo fazendo testes, né? Então os Bills tiveram esse minicamp aí nesse final de semana, e já temos algumas notícias, algumas novidades, alguns resultados desse minicamp. A gente sabe que os Bills começam a temporada, ou essa fase da off-season de treinamentos, e ela vai agora até o último jogo da pré-temporada, né? Já que mudou aquela coisa de você ter que ir cortando o seu elenco aos poucos até ficar os 53 finais, isso mudou. Então, os Bills agora vão poder cortar de 90 para 53 após o último jogo, o terceiro jogo da pré-temporada, né? Então, esse elenco de 90 jogadores vai ficar junto até esse derradeiro dia ali, logo após o último jogo da pré-temporada, onde os Bills vão ter que fazer esse corte para entrar na temporada com 53. Os Bills estão com 88 jogadores, com as últimas adições, foram feitas 3 adições de jogadores que estiveram em testes, né, durante esse minicamp. Então, eu vou até jogar alguma coisa na tela, mas antes disso, galera, eu já quero ir pedindo para vocês para deixar o like aí, quem está assistindo, já está participando agora, deixa o seu like, clica no like aí, se inscreve no canal do Buffalo Rumblings, né? Se inscreve também no meu canal, obviamente, mas o Leading the Charge agora exclusivamente no Buffalo Rumblings, né? Quero agradecer a todos que me seguem lá no Twitter, @Fernando Schmude, na Twitch, né? FH1S Live, né? Conteúdo de Bills, conteúdo de Madden lá também, tá? Sempre com o nosso Billzão, né? E quem apoia com o Pix, né? FernandoSchmude@hotmail.com. Sou totalmente grato a você que já apoiou com o Pix. Afinal de contas, você que é o patrocinador aqui do Leading the Charge e do canal do Fernando Schmude, e eu estar podendo dedicar meu tempo a produzir conteúdo sobre Bills em português, é muito graças a esse pessoal que já colaborou com o Pix. Não tem valor mínimo, não tem valor máximo, não tem valor que é vergonhoso dar tão pouco, não existe isso. Qualquer colaboração me ajuda bastante. Eu sou totalmente grato a todos que já colaboraram, né, e que continuam colaborando aí com o Pix, com esse meu trabalho. Tá? Aproveitando para jogar na tela também algumas novidades recentes, né? Nem todo mundo já viu ou já seguiu lá no Instagram, né? Então tá aí na tela, tá? O perfil. Quem de repente já deu uma olhada lá esse perfil é novo, eu não conhecia. É um perfil meu, esse perfil aqui, tá? Bills News BR. É um perfil que eu comecei agora, faz menos de 2 semanas, logo no draft ali, né? Logo pós-draft eu comecei. Então, cobrindo os Bills, tem alguns cortes do Leading the Charge, a tabela já está aqui, atualizado diariamente, tá? Com as notícias sobre os Bills, tabela, link para o Leading the Charge, tudo que é notícia dos Bills, atualizando em português sempre, tá, gente? Então, fiquem à vontade para seguir e compartilhar aí, né? Esse perfil Bills News BR, trazendo tudo sobre Bills. O canal do Fernando Schmude também, alguns cortes agora do Leading the Charge, eu estou fazendo alguns cortes e lançando lá, então fiz o corte aí sobre os jogadores que foram draftados, né? Para quem não viu, de repente, o Leading the Charge, pega lá jogador a jogador, então vale a pena também seguir por lá, tá? E os Bills acabaram assinando alguns jogadores aí no Rookie Minicamp, né? Trouxeram alguns jogadores. Eu vou trocar uma ideia. Greg Tompsett já está chegando aí, né? E aí a gente vai trocar uma ideia legal com ele. Depois eu finalizo então em português para a gente poder aproveitar ao máximo essa participação mais do que especial aí do Greg Tompsett. Vamos lá. Greg, what's up, my man?
Hey. I was excited. I was looking for Botafogo highlights. I wasn't sure what show I was joining.
My goodness, we just lost our first game today, man. We were like in a 15 game streak, unbeaten, and unfortunately we lost today, but still top of the table, so it's all good.
There you go.
How's it going, my man?
Good. Had a wonderful Mother's Day. Had my family over here and my wife and my mother-in-law, and had a beautiful dinner, and it was a great day. It was very, very good.
Awesome. Happy Mother's Day to all moms from Bills Mafia, right? So it's always well-deserved, a special date, right? And when you hear, it's also a special date. So it's just the perfect day for that, Greg. I really appreciate you joining us, and I'm really excited to have you back in the show and to talk some Bills with you, my man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm excited. It's now that the roster's pretty much set, maybe we see one more little tweak here or there, and now you can really dive in and get excited about what's going on and what this team's going to look like.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, Greg, Spin was curious about how you would be able to do this, speaking Portuguese. And I was like, Greg was practicing Portuguese, obviously, and he's now able to speak it a little bit better, I believe, I told Spin.
Very, very, very little. Very, very little. Very, very little.
pouquinho, a little bit.
Um pouquinho.
Perfect, Greg. Awesome. And so, Greg, this week we have some news, right, about the schedule, especially we already know we already knew the opponents, but we weren't sure about when we were gonna play each one of them. And how did you react to the schedule? I actually have it here. Let me throw it on the screen. But how did you react? What do you think about the way this schedule was built?
So obviously we already knew how challenging the schedule was, because when you're a first place team and you play a first place schedule, obviously there's always going to be some challenges. You add into that the fact that we play the NFC East, which is probably the best NFC division. You had the Super Bowl representative last year and 2 more playoff teams. So the only division that sent 3 teams to the playoffs. So you add that with one of the deeper divisions in the AFC with the AFC West, and then our extra games are, adding in the Bengals. It's and they'll add in the Jaguars. You talk about where the rest of AFC South is very, very poor. If you play this year the NFC South, that's an incredibly bad division. So there's some luck that goes into that. So we already knew the teams we were playing were very difficult. Now, with that aside, the fact that we know we have a difficult schedule because of the teams, I actually thought the order and the bye and the setup was honestly about as good as we could ask for. There are different pieces that we can talk through, but some of the things I always look for, the bye week was late. We know that that's always a benefit to teams. We see that an awful lot of Super Bowl champions have a late bye. It's a benefit to wait and get that break towards the end of the year. Then the team we're playing coming off of the bye is the Kansas City Chiefs, so we get a little extra rest going into that game. The only time we have a short week is with a home game against Tampa Bay, who looks like they're rebuilding, and that gives us a 10-day break going into Cincinnati. So some of those different pieces, I know Philadelphia, they're coming off a Monday night game on the road when we play them, so we'll have a little rest advantage against them. So some of our toughest opponents, we have a rest advantage, and the games where we have a rest disadvantage are teams like Denver and Tampa Bay. So it's it's still a tough schedule, but honestly, I think it's about as good as you could ask for.
Yeah, no doubt. Just like you said, we were aware about the strength of those opponents. So I don't think we could have asked for a way more than that. Like especially the late buy, right? I think it's a big time advantage, especially if you can't get the number 1 seed. Like you have a late buy, it makes all the difference in the world. Thinking about just this last season, for example, we had a very early buy, and we saw how the team was really tired, and with all, not just physically but mentally also, all the stuff that happened and the sequence of games and tough games down the road. So I really believe that we couldn't ask for much better than that, right?
Yeah, that if I was going to complain about anything, I would say that the way the London game worked out wasn't perfect. I don't love that we give up a home game and we're playing the only team that goes to London all the time. So they're a little bit more comfortable with that. They're already going to be there. They're actually playing in London in week 4 and week 5. So we're the team traveling, but it counts as a home game. And then we also had the choice of taking our bye week in week 6, which I think is smart that we didn't. But so I like that they rolled the dice and said, hey, we're not going to take the bye in week 6. We know we could have chosen that. We'll just take luck of the draw and see where our bye ends up. That ended up in our favor. I guess if I was going to try to do one thing that would have, if I could have adjusted it, the perfect schedule for me would have been if the London game was week 12 instead of Philadelphia, and then we also had the bye right afterwards coming back. I guess that would have been a little bit better, but ultimately, we don't have any consecutive road games. It goes pretty much a road home the whole way through the schedule. We don't have the crazy heat, playing teams like Jacksonville and Tampa Bay and Miami. None of those games are in Florida in September.
Yeah.
So pretty, and honestly, I know, we like the benefit of the weather with Buffalo, and we like to think about it that way. But now that we have a really good offense, I actually
Yeah.
don't hate it that a lot of the games at the end of the season are road games and nicer weather. That it's probably better. I'd rather play the Chargers or Miami there when our offense would be full speed going in that direction. So it's, I actually think it worked out about as good as it can. It's still a killer schedule once you get through those first 8 games, which you have a pretty nice soft start. Once you hit that Cincinnati game, the worst team we play the rest of the year is like Denver or New England. It's,
Yeah.
the AFC championship team, now a team that added Sean Payton, a team that added Aaron Rodgers, a Super Bowl team, the Super Bowl champs, a 12-win team, Justin Herbert, the Patriots, and then the Dolphins. Like that's a tough stretch to end the year, but hopefully we stack up some wins early. So as long as we knock out a handful of wins down the stretch here, we'll still be fine.
No doubt, man. It's crazy to think how things change so quickly. Like it's really weird for me to think like, okay, New England is an easy game, or it's the easiest. It's so weird, man. Because
when's the last time you thought about New England being last place in the division?
Yeah, no doubt. It's been a long time. My goodness. And even Rafael, who's here, he said good evening to everybody. Besides the long game counting as home game, he was pretty happy with the schedule. And he, off and off, he told me like, I'm a little bit worried because the start seems like easier, or we definitely must win some games early, because post bye it's really a really tough stretch. So
the only thing I would add to that is he's right, and most likely it is going to be tough. But if anything changes, the things that change are that injuries stack up during the year, and teams we thought were going to be really good end up not being that good. That happens at the end of the year. So
no doubt.
I guess if you're going to roll the dice and say, hey, maybe some of those teams won't be quite as good by the time the end of the year comes, I guess I would rather that. I don't think there's much chance that Washington all of a sudden becomes a great team.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much chance that Tampa Bay all of a sudden becomes a great team. I think we're pretty safe on the front end of the schedule. At the end, they probably will still be really good, but there's a chance that maybe some of those teams aren't quite as good as what they look right now.
Absolutely, that's a great point, Greg, and no doubt, I can't lie, I haven't thought about that, because, like you said, if for example, if we play Kansas against Kansas without Kelsey, or without Mahomes, or we can say the same thing about other teams, and even the Bills are in danger of something happening to our players too. But those teams, we might not see them when we play them as we see them right now. And just like you said, not just the Washington, but even the Jets. If you remember when Brady joined the Bucks and how they played the Saints like week 1, and they were like the Saints steamrolled over them in week 1, and then they beat the Saints late in the playoffs and won it all. So even the Jets on week 1 with Aaron Rodgers making his debut, and it might be the best time to play the Jets.
Well, I mean, historically, if I remember right, I'm pretty sure that week 1 is always the best time to play Aaron Rodgers. I think last year the Vikings smoked them 23-7 in week 1.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing happened to them the year before, that they got destroyed in week 1. So maybe Aaron Rodgers has an issue with week 1, and maybe we'll get to find out that in a good way.
I hope so. Okay, and looking at the schedule, what's the game that you really see as a trap game? Like, because obviously we see the big time games, like, okay, Jets week 1 Monday night, and all the anticipation, then Kansas game, Bengals game, both of Dolphins game nowadays are big time challenges. But which game do you see as a dangerous game that nobody's counting on and might be tougher than people believe right now?
So yeah, I mean, not picking an obvious one where Cincinnati, Philly, Kansas City, even Dallas and the Chargers and teams like that. I would say maybe a sneaky one is that Giants game. So the Giants game, we're going to be coming back from London. We're going to be trying to get back acclimated with the body clock issues and things like that. And then you add to that, we're playing a team that, if anybody knows things that bother Josh Allen, it's probably going to be Brian Daboll. So he's going to be able to tell Wink Martindale all of Josh Allen's least favorite things that he, dislikes the most, and we're going to bother him. So I'd like to think that the talent difference is enough that won't matter. But if there's a sneaky game on the schedule for me, it's probably that Giants game where, we're coming back from overseas and then playing a head coach in a front office that knows our talent really well and knows our personnel. So that would be a sneaky one. Other than that, it would all be those, Bengals, Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, Chargers, all those games.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. This Giants is a dangerous one. It's like playing a divisional rival, maybe with the way Daboll and
that's a great comparison. It probably is more like a division rivalry game than it is your standard just interconference game that you play once every 4 years.
Yeah, and just like I told you, even with the way we beat the Patriots in that playoffs game, I still am like, oh, we can't take this for granted because Bill Belichick is gonna find a way to make it tougher, and their defense is always great, not against us, but against all the league. They are always great, and Bill O'Brien now is obviously, I want to believe he's an upgrade over Patricia as an offensive coordinator. So
it can't be worse. It can't be worse. It's got to be a little bit better. We'll see what he does.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay. Also this week, Greg, we had some other than the schedule news, but we had the rookie minicamps happening this weekend, right? And some new acquisitions by the Bills. But I want to start asking about one that was made some weeks before, but because that one was a special one. That one for you was just like when Terrell Bernard is balling week after week as the middle linebacker, the captain of our defense, and I will be like, my goodness, I was correct on this one. So that one for you was just like this. Puna Ford is a Buffalo Bill. So how do you see this signing, and how do you anticipate him being used in this defense? Because that's a versatile guy, a guy who can play one technique, but he can play three technique and played several roles for Seattle, right?
Yeah. So he's, a very strong, stout run defender. And the biggest thing that pleases me with it, obviously I was a big advocate for signing him. I really wanted, I thought it made a ton of sense. So I obviously enjoyed that my prediction was accurate. People probably got a little too excited in what kind of player that means. Like, we didn't all of a sudden sign Aaron Donald or something like that. But the area that I'll try to draw people's attention to was how noticeable it was every time Daquan Jones came off the field, and that how easy it was to run against us, how noticeable it was. Unfortunately, the one game he missed all season was that Cincinnati game in the playoffs, and how easily they were able to run the ball. So now, getting Daquan Jones back, but imagine if some games we had to push him to play like 68, 70, 72% of snaps. That's way too much for a 32-year-old 330-pound man. So now you add in Puna Ford, having the fact that the two of them can just alternate every other drive, and that we always have one of them on the field, and ideally only need each of them to play 50% of snaps so they're always fresh, is perfect. And then in obvious short yardage situations, obvious run situations, to put the two of them next to each other in goal line and have those two there is a huge, huge advantage to keep the linebackers clean. I also think it lets Tim Settle focus on a 3-tech, which is what he's better at. It lets Jordan Phillips just do the number of snaps that he's available for. We don't have to overuse him. always having one of Daquan Jones or Poona Ford next to Ed Oliver will make Ed Oliver better. It was just a really beneficial domino effect of what it brings in. So he's not some amazing superstar who's going to make these huge game-changing plays. So I don't want people to get overly excited just because how excited I was on Twitter that day when he signed. But he is a really nice addition. They got him at a great value, and it's like having two Daquan Joneses now. The fact that we have two really good, strong one technique guys, both of which are good enough to push the pocket and to penetrate when you need to, and can push an offensive lineman back into the lap of a quarterback. They're not going to pull all kinds of crazy, pass rush moves and become like a 8-sack guy, but they're both capable of 2, 3, 4 sacks and to be able to clean up some snacks when you have other guys coming around the edge and stepping up. They're active, and fans are going to love Poona Ford. He runs with a crazy high motor, always super, super active, never giving up on a play, chasing stuff down. And when he chases stuff down at 5'11", 310 pounds, it's fun to watch a guy like that chase someone down.
No doubt. Here in Brazil, people have been asking for a while now for defensive tackles that show their bellies off the jersey, because they were like, we need those guys with big time bellies who show them off, and like Sam Adams, Pat Williams, those kind of players inside. And then Poona Ford comes with his celebration of showing his belly and stuff like that. So people loves it, right?
Yeah.
But just like you said, we must anticipate. Look, we're not signing Aaron Donald because some people have crazy high expectation, and it's not fair to expect Poona Ford to be this kind of dominant player. But one thing that I'm curious, Greg, especially with the direction that they went at linebacker, no matter who plays in Edmunds' place, it will be a guy who doesn't have the size, the length that Tremaine has, and it will be a guy more in the Milano's modes that is going to benefit or being kept clean. Even Edmunds was benefited by this.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe sometimes when we play teams that want to run the ball, and we know the Bills don't want to come out of the nickel package and take Teron Johnson away from the field, because you're taking out of the field one of your best defensive players in Teron Johnson. So maybe sometimes you can rotate, just like you said, not just goal line, but you can put even Daquan and Poona Ford inside and keep Oliver fresh for a third down, obvious passing down and things like that. So it gives the McDermott now calling the shots a lot of options to work with, right?
Yeah, and maybe the Raiders like to use Josh Jacobs a lot. A game with the Patriots where they have Ramondre Stevenson, and the running backs that they have. Those are games that maybe you do. With the Eagles, how much they like to run the ball. Those are games maybe you do play the two of them a little bit more, and you're able to use them more. Whereas in other games with higher flying passing offenses, you just rotate them and keep everybody fresh.
Yeah, no doubt. And still talking about defensive line, Greg, because looking at the way the roster was built or has been built so far, and the roster that is entering these OTAs with these rookie mini camps now, the rookies being added, and we just added Shane Ray, a former first-round pick from the Broncos, to get his shot at a comeback to the NFL, right? Obviously, it's difficult to expect a lot from him because he hasn't been in the league for a couple of years now, or even more. But maybe pass rush is the way or the place where the Bills can add somebody to help, especially with the way Vaughn has been recovering, but we're not sure when he's going to be ready to contribute. And even we don't know him, we don't want him to be ready just for week one. We want him perfectly ready for when it really matters. So I even tweeted about a situation, and it's obviously not the situation that we are facing, but the tweet was something like, okay, if you needed to trade Oliver to open some cap space and sign like Ngakoue or Houston, would you do that, trading Oliver for a fourth round pick? It's not necessary because the Bills can do different stuff, and people like you who knows the cap better than me know what kind of moves can be made so you can use contract year Ed Oliver and still add a guy like this. Which places do you see the Bills being able to make some movements and opening some cap space to add a guy like this if they feel in the training camp that, okay, Epeneza is not going to step up, or Boogie is not going to step up, or Shane Ray or Shaq Lau, so we need to add another guy, a veteran proven guy, where they can make a move and add one of those.
So there's a few different options to create cap space. I actually was very open to trading at Oliver earlier in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably too late now, in my opinion, that I would struggle to find. I don't want to see Jordan Phillips in a high snap count role. I like him as a impact guy at like 30% of snaps, but I think he's shown he can't hold up for 17 games, maybe as it is, even at 30% of snaps, let alone needing 50, 60% of snaps. I don't think Tim Settle's ready for that. And I like Poona Ford, but I like him in a rotation with Daquan Jones. So earlier in the offseason, I was actually pretty open to moving that Oliver. Now, it probably wouldn't help the team, even if the next step I'm going to talk about is what's needed. I agree 100% that one more pass rusher is our biggest remaining need. I would have been okay with a linebacker. There isn't anybody else out in the market that's better than a competition of Terrell Bernard, Terrell Dotson, Dorian Williams, and all those guys. I would have liked an offensive tackle. There aren't really anybody else out there that I think can make a big difference. Cameron Fleming is an interesting offensive tackle that I wouldn't mind. But he's probably a David Quessenberry upgrade, not really someone who's going to push Spencer Brown for a job. I wanted someone who could push Spencer Brown. At defensive end, I am a fan of AJ Epinesa. He's never going to be what we thought he was going to be, but I mean, he had 6.5 sacks last year.
Yeah.
That's a rotational third defensive end. That's perfectly fine. It's not the big starter we thought we were getting, or this huge draft steal that we thought we might be getting, but he's fine. I am out on Boogie Basham. I don't believe that anything's there, but just like Spencer Brown, sometimes the team believes in guys more than I do, and that's fine. Sometimes I'm wrong. So maybe Boogie Basham proves me wrong. I think we need a guy who can start opposite Gregory Rousseau early, while Von Miller ideally is on the pup. And we didn't talk about that in the schedule, but that soft start to the schedule makes it even easier to rest Von Miller. Hey, come on back for Cincinnati in week 9. I'm totally fine with that. Sit out those first 8 games. We'll be fine without you. We're going to do just fine. You come back for Cincinnati and play with us for the last 9 games of the year and into the playoffs. That's perfectly fine for me. What I would like is, for me, it's Justin Houston, Melvin Ingram, Yannick Ngakoue, Leonard Floyd, Robert Quinn. Those are my 5. I would love any of them. And you want to know who I want out of those 5? Whoever's the cheapest. Whoever will take the lowest contract out of those 5. Which, and you want to know what? One of them's probably going to go to the Chiefs, and one of them's probably going to go to the Bengals, and one of them's probably going to go to the Ravens, and one of them's probably going to go to the Eagles, and one of them's probably going to go to the Cowboys or the 49ers. But one of those guys, and there's actually a handful more. Jadeveon Clowney's out there, Frank Clark's out there. There's other guys. One of them is going to end up with the Bills. I really do think that. So we can make a little bit of room. We can extend Micah Hyde and save $4.5 million. We can extend Daquan Jones and save $4.5 million. We can extend Taron Johnson and save almost $4 million. We can restructure Deion Dawkins and save almost $6 million. We can restructure Trey White and save $5.5 million. We have a couple different moves there where we don't need to trade anyone away. We don't need to cut anyone crazy. There's a couple like Saran Neal could save us some money, something like that, but we don't really have any cut options that save us money. It would pretty much only be trading at Oliver. And again, at this point, like Justin Houston is probably better than Ed Oliver. It's probably pretty close, but it's not so much that like it doesn't make the team better. Like saving the money and then having him is more like 6 one way, half dozen the other. So it's just a trade-off. It's not really making it better. Adding that guy where early on you now have Rousseau, with Shaq Lawson as a backup, and you have Justin Houston with AJ Epinesa as a backup, that's a good rotation.
Yeah.
That's 2 strong side defensive ends, 2 pass rush defensive ends. And then later in the season, when you have Von Miller, when it's, fourth quarter, 3rd and 8 against the Bengals, and you can kick Gregory Rousseau into defensive tackle, and you go Justin Houston, Ed Oliver, Gregory Rousseau, and Von Miller, those 4 going after a quarterback, now I'm excited. That's guys who can really close and really finish. So again, Eric Turner did a bunch of film work, and he thinks that the best value left out of those guys is Justin Houston. He still has a lot of gas left in the tank. He signed for $2 million 2 years ago with Baltimore, and last year for $3.5 million. We can make that amount of space. We can create that kind of space. Give him some, escalators in his contract that if he gets a bunch of sacks and we go to the Super Bowl, that he gets $4 or $5 million. Give him some extra stuff to his incentives. That's the kind of guy. Him, Melvin Ingram, Robert Quinn, Leonard Floyd, Yannick Ngakoue, one of those guys. Whoever loses that game of musical chairs will come welcome them to Buffalo.
Yeah, it's being even commended here. Like, I don't think the remaining free agents want to take a discount. But there are all those guys, and somebody's gonna be. Is gonna need to rethink about.
So Spin is right. If they wanted to take a discount, they would have already signed. However, there also comes a point where that's simply not an option. Where them wanting money doesn't matter anymore. At some point, there's no more money left. And that their choice is going to be, do they want a little bit more money in Houston, or a little bit more money in Tampa, or a little bit more money, in Arizona, versus almost, where you're talking $4 million in Arizona or $3 million in Buffalo. They're not going to get the amount of money they thought they were going to get. A couple of those guys will. But some of those guys just aren't going to get the amount of money they thought they were going to get. We need one of those guys to be like what Poona Ford did. Poona Ford had more money available and took a little bit less to come to Buffalo. We need one more of those at defensive end.
No doubt. And even if we think about things that are important to those guys, obviously money, but also, competing for Super Bowl, and playing time, because they want to play. And
Poona Ford isn't dumb. Poona Ford saw that we have 6 primetime games and that we're going to have a ton of attention. If he plays well, he'll get a better contract from either Buffalo or someone next year.
Absolutely. And if he looks at the depth chart, he definitely sees opportunity to play for some snaps there inside. So same thing to one of those pass rushes, knowing that Von Miller maybe will need some time to get back on track. And there is a path where they can even play a lot of these snaps, and if they do well during Von Miller being out, when Von Miller is back, they are the go-to guy. Maybe even taking you can move Rousseau inside on passing downs and things like that.
He was really good at that last year too. Spin had one more comment there that I think does fit in about the trade that someone may be gone. Every year, Brandon Beane trades guys at cutdown day. And I think we have a ton of depth at guard. I could see an Ike Bottker or a David Edwards getting traded. And I absolutely think an AJ Epinesa or a Boogie Basham, if we sign one more guy, if we sign another defensive end, I absolutely think one of those guys could get traded at cutdown day. And maybe it's a 2024 5th-round pick or a 2024 6th-round pick, but that's fine. If we can get a little bit extra, I think I looked at Boogie Basham, we would eat like $700,000 in dead cap. It would be split like 350 this year, 350 that next year, but we would save like 1.2 million in cap space. So it's not nothing. And if we get an extra draft pick out of it, and it's Justin Houston and a 6th-round pick, and we pay for half of his cap hit because of trading Boogie Basham, I'll take that trade all day.
No doubt. And even AJ is in his contract year too, right? Just like Ed Oliver also, right? It's the last
correct.
year of
Epinesa. Epinesa's in his contract.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. I saw Epinesa on Embedded, the first episode of Embedded. I don't know if you
I did. I saw.
You saw. And the guy finally looked like in a shape that he's comfortable with, because when he arrived, he was a totally different player and a different shape, and then he looked very slim after the transformation, and maybe now he's ready to finally be at the point where the Bills want him to be. It looked like
Yeah, I think he went down a little too. Like I don't really understand drafting a guy who plays a certain size and then changing that. Like I don't really get it myself, but whatever. They're professionals; they know more than I do. It looked like he went a little too far, and now it looks like maybe he's coming back a little bit. So he went from like 270 to it looked like he was down to like 245, and now if he's back at like 255, 260, but moving well, so quicker than he was when they first got him, which is with the key. They want him to be a little more explosive. And last year he had that first step. He had that explosion coming off the ball. So now if he's a little bit more comfortable and a little more filled out in that space, maybe it's the best we're going to get from him.
No doubt. And not just the defensive end position. With AJ and with Boogie, it's a big year for them. Obviously, they need to perform, or people will be brought in to play in their places and get snaps out of them. But also we have other young pieces that gotta step up, because Greg, every fan always is all about the DeAndre Hopkins, and I'd love to have DeAndre Hopkins, don't
Of course.
get me wrong. But a major part of the team becoming a contender or getting the next step to get to the Super Bowl and win it all is getting their young pieces developed and contributing more. Look at the Eagles, for example. If Hurts didn't develop like the way he did, or other pieces there, they wouldn't be this powerhouse in the NFC.
And I'll use an example for them. They're a great comparison. A player that doesn't get a lot of attention. Devontae Smith didn't have a great rookie year. Like people weren't that, they were a little concerned about like, oh man, should we have taken someone else? You know, what happened here?
And things like that.
Yeah, is he not going to be able to stand up? He's a perfect example where, because of the other additions they made, they allowed him to step up a little bit more. And I think that would be like something we see where, hey, maybe adding in a better weapon in the middle of the field like Dalton Kincaid, maybe that allows Gabe Davis to take a step forward with a little bit less attention. Maybe that allows Dawson Knox to take a little bit of a step forward where he's now a secondary tight end option, where they're now consistently getting less coverage and less attention. Maybe that allows Khalil Shakir to be to step up in a limited role where he's not having to be the full-time slot receiver all the time. It's just in the packages where he makes sense. And we don't need all of them to, or we saw the crazy efficiency numbers that Deontay Hardy had when he was in New Orleans in the limited number of snaps he got. Maybe we can utilize that where he's still incredibly impactful in a smaller role, and we're able to mix and match that. So, we just need one of those guys to be able to really step forward. We don't need everybody to have a breakout. We just need one of those guys to step forward to really, take a little bit of pressure off what Stephon Diggs is still going to be to this offense.
Yeah, no doubt. And the way the being built this roster, the fun thing about it is that we're not like putting all our eggs in one basket about, we need this guy to become someone or a better player or a special player. But we have several options competing. It's the same thing at the Mike linebacker position. We have a couple of third-round picks there. We have Dotson, who has been developed for some years now. We have Spector, who is athletic and was drafted too. So at cornerback, we think about, Kaiir Elam finally showed something against the Dolphins, and he can be special. But we still have Benford, who can even step up, and now a rookie again who has all the potential in the world. He's a late round guy, but has the potential. So even if you look at the free agency signings inside at the guard positions, Edwards, McGovern, they are young guys. They can play for 8 years if they really succeed as starting for the Bills. So I think there are a lot of options, Greg, where we can find a diamond maybe in some of those places, right?
Yeah, I think that a lot of those, obviously we didn't make a huge splash move. We didn't have a Von Miller type addition this year. But I think the key is each of the little improvements. So, Connor McGovern is an improvement over Roger Saffold. David Edwards is an improvement over Greg Van Roten. Trent Sherfield is an improvement over Jake Kumaro. having a guy like Damian Harris is an improvement over Zach Moss. Having Latavius Murray is an additional running back instead of Tywan Jones, and not losing that impact because Justin Shorter can play special teams at wide receiver. So the combination of running backs plus wide receivers, we still have the same amount of coverage guys. Last year it was Tywan Jones and Jake Kumaro. This year it's Trent Sherfield and Justin Shorter. So just the little improvements around the edge there, having Poona Ford as an additional one tech, having we have really good depth now. I know in the chat they were talking about Trey White being able to come back his second year back. I'm really excited about Kaiir Elam. I think there's been a lot of discussion about that he didn't play. He played in 14 games and played 600 snaps. Like, he played a lot of football, and he looked really good down the stretch, including, like you brought up, in that Miami game where they tried to go after him and he broke up a critical play and then sniffed out that wide receiver screen that pretty much ended their game against us. So spots like that, I'm excited about that. I don't know that any of the individual guys that we got is going to be some huge. I think Dalton Kincaid has game-breaking potential. Dalton Kincaid could be special. Maybe not instantly, but he could be special. The rest of those guys are nice upgrades, nice addition. Maybe Osiris Torrance lets us turn Ryan Bates into a great universal backup across the board, and he's just a little bit of an upgrade. Each of those things can help. So now we do need most of them to turn out, 2/3 of them to turn out. But if they do, we improved at a bunch of little spaces and then still have Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and Von Miller and people like that.
No doubt. And speaking of Elam, Rafael here is a bit worried about Trey White because of coming back off a difficult injury. But I think I saw some signs of good signs coming from Trey late in the year. Like, there was I don't know, I think it was against Miami, a deep pass that he recovered and made the play on the wide receiver hands, and he was able to recover. He got beat deep and recovered and still made the play at the catch point. And it was an impressive play, a play that I would be worried about him not being able to do after this ACL recover. I think it's fair to be a little bit worried about him, but I don't know if you agree with me, Greg, but I think Kaiir really can become a kind of number one cornerback. Like, he has all the athletic ability in the world, and even his experience playing man-to-man and press coverage in college, and the way he can mirror guys, and how he played against Tyreek Hill, it really gives me a real boost in my confidence of Kaiir being able to step up and become a number one guy. And if you think we've played recently with Dane and Levi at some point when Trey got injured the first time. So if Trey can't be the same as he was in his absolutely best, I think he still can be very good. And even down the line, he can move to safety when Hyde and Poyer are gone. This is an option too. This guy knows the defense since the beginning of McDermott's era. So how do you feel about Trey's comeback and this future for the cornerback position?
So first, I guess I'm not sure what people think they watched last year. I keep seeing all these comments about how he's washed and how he's not a cornerback one anymore. I mean, last year he gave up 23 catches on 42 targets for 277 yards and 1 touchdown in 8 games. That's 2.9 catches a game for 34 yards and 1 touchdown over 8 games. Most people thought 2019 was his best season where he had all pro votes. In that season, he gave up 3.2 catches per game. So more catches per game for 39 yards, more yards per game on 5.5 targets, more targets per game. So I don't know. I don't know what people think they were watching or what they expected him to be, but now he's going to be his second year off of ACL surgery. He just turned 28. He's not like he's 30. Yeah. He was 27 years old. He just turned 28 like last week. So he's still in his prime. I don't know. I feel really good. We still have easily a cornerback one and a guy who absolutely could play at a level where we get all pro votes again. Like I didn't see anything last year that showed me he was washed. I saw a guy who was hesitant coming off ACL surgery, and early on didn't have that same, kind of stick his foot in the ground and explode, especially off some of those comeback routes and those quick in breakers where he would break on it and be able to bat it away. He didn't quite have that back yet, but now he's going to have another full offseason. I'm expecting him, and especially, we need him to be, but I expect him to still be a cornerback one. I think that at the end of his contract, in 3 more years, maybe we're talking about moving him to safety. I think he is a good starting corner for this season and 2 more seasons. And you draft a guy like Kyer Elam to be able to hedge that as Kyer Elam's getting into his 3rd and 4th year of development, where he's 6'1" and change, running a 4.39 40, now he can take over more of those number 1 corner responsibilities, where Trey White can still be really good now against wide receiver 2s. So I still feel good about it. Obviously, we still need to see him perform that way, but I see these comments about what people, I guess, think they watched last year. I just didn't see that. I didn't see a guy who played horrible and struggled. I saw a guy who gave up 2.9 catches for 34 yards a game. Seemed pretty good to me.
Yeah, it's sometimes it seems like people think about pre-injury Trey, like All-Pro Trey. He was like Darrell Reeves, and don't get me wrong, I love
Deion Sanders.
I love Trey White, but he never was Darrell Reeves in his prime, like blanketing everybody. And no, do you remember how he used to struggle with big-time guys, and Kenny Golladay got some catches over his head, and people were like, oh, Trey struggles with big receivers and things like that early in his career. So it's not like he was a completely shut down cornerback. He was great.
How about this? We've seen what Stephon Diggs has done with Jalen Ramsey. Does that mean Jalen Ramsey isn't good? No, he's still really good. You want to know what? Offense is easy in the NFL. Defense is really hard. Guys are going to catch the ball. I have no idea what people are expecting.
No doubt. And even nowadays with Sauce Gardner in his rookie year, which was impressive, but guys escapes with some flags and some holding, grabby stuff. Like
he is really pushing the limit of what they'll let him get away with, but God bless him. You might as well try it. So it's so hard to play defense in the NFL nowadays. I appreciate, I respect the fact that he's trying.
No doubt. Some people worried about wide receiver position, and Spin made a nice question here about Shorter, because a lot of people are excited about Shorter, and I all the time like, oh, hold on, because the guy's a project and things like that. And the last things that I saw was on Twitter was like, oh, I get some TO vibes on Shorter. I was like, my goodness, easy.
I get vibes of the 3rd best receiver in NFL history from the guy that we drafted in the 5th round, who had like 1,500 yards in 5 college seasons. Sure, that would be great.
Yeah, but this question is good. Like, do you think the Bills are banking on Shorter being Davis' replacement for next year? I think the guy has the potential, but it's a huge developmental guy, and a lot of things will matter on this decision. Davis' season this year, how much he's gonna be able to gather interest from other teams, and how much money people will be able to throw at him, and so I think there are a lot of things to be considered him. And does Shorter have the potential? Absolutely, but that's a rookie 5th round guy.
I was just gonna say, the Bills aren't banking on any 5th round pick to be anything. You don't bank on 5th round picks to be anything. Like, if they turn into anything, that's great. Like that's exciting. Now, in the same way that I'm open to being wrong about Spencer Brown, if you're going to bet on a guy, you bet on a guy with historic traits, like special physical traits. So if we're going to bet on a guy in the 5th round panning out, make it a guy who was the number 1 wide receiver recruit in his recruiting class. Make it a guy who's 6'4", 230 pounds and chiseled. And has really good hands, oddly. So he played with some bad quarterbacks in college. Maybe there's a chance that it wasn't him. We watched some film on him. he's not great getting in and out of his breaks. He's not great in short area quickness, but maybe he can be a contested catch guy. And maybe if we were to lose Gabriel Davis in the same way we lost Tremaine Edmonds, so we lost Tremaine Edmonds, so I wouldn't call Terrell Bernard or Dorian Williams banking on replacing Tremaine Edmonds. They're just the guys who are going to have to play because somebody has to play. So if we lose Gabe Davis because he sends a huge contract with Atlanta or with Arizona or whoever, maybe Justin Shorter is the guy who has to play. I would guess that we'd go out and get someone before we started him, a fifth round pick, but it's possible he could be. I wouldn't phrase it as we're banking on him to replace Gabe Davis because I don't think they bank on day 3 picks for anything. They're just a bonus if they hit. Most day 3 picks never pan out, and if they do, it's a great bonus.
Yeah, dude has potential. He has the size, the speed, good things about a guy who you expect to go deep and be a deep threat all the time, like Davis.
There's a reason NFL teams picked 149 guys before him.
No doubt. And there is also a guy in Khalil Shakir who's been okay. He's not the size of Shorter, but has the speed. He's been playing the role that Gabe played before becoming the number 2 target, like being moving around, playing inside and outside, things like that. So I want to believe, just like I believe Terrell Bernard is ahead of Williams in the pecking order of getting his shot. He was drafted at the exact same spot, like 2 picks different in the difference, and he has learned the defense for an entire year. The size is similar, all this stuff. They say great things about his leadership. So just like I believe Bernard is ahead of the pecking order of Williams, I think the same way about, for example, Shorter and Khalil Shakir, for example. And then you can
Shakir absolutely has a head start. If anything, the one thing that Shorter has in his favor is being a 4-phase special teams guy. That means he's going to have a jersey on game day. He's going to be active. And anytime that happens, you have a chance to play. Khalil Shakir, that's what he struggled with. He can't cover. He's not good on coverage. So when you're a depth wide receiver, it's hard to get on the field. It's how we lost Isaiah Hodgins. Like when you're not good enough to beat out the other guys earlier and you also can't play special teams, it hurts because it's hard to keep those depth guys on the roster and ready to go. So Shorter at least has that going for him. He's going to stay on the roster. He's going to be active on game day. And then when you get your chance, if he balls out, good for him. I'm not expecting that. I think it would be a great bonus if he does. But, you know, he could get some deep balls. He could get some contested catches and he can show a little bit there. And that would be exciting.
Yeah, it will be up to him to show, not just in the mini camps, and because without the pads, those guys look awesome, right? Like I remember Luke Williams was a big time fan favorite. And
Derrick Rogers and Sills, David Sills. There's always going to be our training camp darlings before the pads come out.
No doubt. But and even Spin asked about Shakir. I think Shakir has a shot of becoming the slot guy. But my question is, like, Dalton Kincaid, he's probably the guy who's going to win this big slot position. And
they didn't trade up in the first round to then give all the snaps to Khalil Shakir.
So he will need to showcase and in the preseason and in his opportunities. But just like I said before, the great thing about this Bills team is if you don't have the shiny new big time player in the DeAndre Hopkins, you have a lot of guys capable of becoming something really good. And Shakir is one of those guys, and he's gonna battle Kincaid and he's gonna battle Hardy, who when healthy has been a matchup nightmare. So we have a lot of possibilities, and even Shorter, who might find a spot in the special teams, and he'll be there. And you need a big red zone target, and he's there for special teams. He grabs the ball playing a snap in red zone, and then he gets another shot. And
Khalil Shakir's got to compete with Deontay Hardy. I mean, they gave Deontay Hardy like $4 million. That's not zero. Like, that's a decent amount of money. I think that they're expecting Deontay Hardy to push Shakir for that slot receiver job. And I still think they're going to run plenty of 11 personnel. I think they'll run way more 12 personnel than they did before, but they ran the least in the league last year. So it's easy to run more. I think they could go from the 3 or 4% they were last year to maybe 30%, but they're still going to run a lot of 11 personnel. And when they do run 11 personnel, I think it's going to be interesting of who wins the job for that third receiving spot of Deontay Hardy versus Khalil Shakir. I think that's going to be an interesting battle, and I think that we see more rotation in those spots between Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid early on. We see the two of them together, but then I think in some obvious passing downs, I think we might see Kincaid in there instead of Knox.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, Greg. I've watched recently the first two games from last season against the Rams and Titans, and early in the year, we could see Dorsey going a lot on 12 personnel early downs, with Morris getting some opportunities in the rotation, and alongside Knox too. A lot of Reggie Gillian, and so we can see that they really wanted to go this direction when they tried OJ Howard and then it didn't work out, and they gave Morris an opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting how they
Jacob Hollister, they tried it with him.
Yeah.
Tyler Croft, they tried it with him. They've been wanting, this is not new of them wanting to run more 12 personnel. They just can't find the right guy. And now they find, you want to know what? Screw it. We'll go get the right guy. And they went and got the best pass catcher in this draft by many draft experts' opinion. So I think it's exciting. I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him.
Yeah, awesome. A guy who really popped also in those games was Jordan Phillips. It was awesome how impactful he was when fresh and
keep him on the field. We just got to keep him on the field.
Yeah, man, we need him healthy down the road, and for the playoffs, he's gonna be huge. So, Greg, I don't want to take too much of your time. You've been, and I really appreciate you taking your time to be here with us. To close it down, man, I wish when I still played soccer, okay, I wish I had a coach who loved me the way McDermott and Bean love Spencer Brown, or at least they say the things about Spencer Brown, because my goodness, man, they are really hyped on the guy, and it's not just the words, but the actions are going this direction too, because just like you said, they brought back Kissenberry. They really didn't add a guy to push him, and a lot of competition inside, and then maybe Bates might become a backup and he is able to play tackle, but it's not ideal for Bates to play tackle. How confident are you on Spencer Brown? And I know Eric watches a lot of film and he's the best in the business doing so. So how confident can we really be with Spencer Brown? Because I really buy in the idea, like, okay, the guy never had a perfect off-season, a perfect NFL off-season. His first real NFL off-season, he got a back injury and a surgery. So it's his first real off-season, and he just won the home run derby in Micah Hyde's game. So he seems healthy. How confident are you guys at Cover One in Spencer Brown being able really to finally step up and become this dominant right tackle? Because physically he has it all.
So unfortunately, the answer is not really confident. But I'll tell you the story of how it would work out is because, he was a small school guy who missed his senior year of football because almost all FCS level canceled their entire season because of COVID. Then he worked out and came in, wasn't supposed to play at all, didn't get any starting snaps in camp. And then all of a sudden, a couple games in, they switch him in and start playing him because they moved Darrell Williams into guard. Mm-hmm. Then he comes back his next year, has a new offensive line coach, and injures his back and has back surgery, doesn't get to have any offseason with that offensive line coach. He's rehabbing the whole time, and they don't even know if he's going to play the first game, and then has to try to gut it out and play when he's limited with the back injury, which is huge for an offensive lineman with the kind of battles that they go back and forth. So on the film, he wasn't good. He wasn't consistently good. He had flashes. He obviously has flashes. He's an elite athlete. He has stretches where he's good, but he also has stretches where he just isn't able to drop his hips and get his weight down to where he needs to, which maybe that's because of the back injury. So this season, he obviously appears healthy. He was turning his back awful fine to hit all those home runs in the softball home run derby. And now he gets a full offseason to work with Aaron Kromer while he's healthy and in the best shape he's been in since he's been here with the Bills. So if I'm going to tell myself a story of why it's going to work out, it's going to be because he's finally healthy, gets a whole offseason with Aaron Kromer, and can put that together. But he needs to, because he has not played consistently, and he has been one of the guys that has put Josh Allen at the most risk because of what he allows in that pressure around the outside. So if he puts it together, it has a huge impact on the success of this Bills team. But unfortunately, he has to, because our best hope besides him is that maybe Ryan Bates can go back to right tackle like he was at Penn State. It's not David Quessenberry. It's not going to be him. He's a decent run blocker. He is not a good pass blocker. He's never been a good pass blocker. Tommy Doyle's never shown us anything that means he's going to be a starting caliber player. So we need Spencer Brown to hit, and if he doesn't, it's can Ryan Bates be just passable enough that we'll be okay. So we need him to hit. So I'm nervous about it. I wanted them to go offensive tackle in the first round because I wanted a guy who could come in and make Brown the extra blocking tight end and the sixth offensive lineman and the swing tackle. I was fine with that. But now all our eggs are in that basket, so we're going to find out. And in the same way, I wanted them to get a linebacker earlier because I wasn't ready to put all our eggs in the basket of Terrell Bernard and Terrell Dotson and Dorian Williams, but that's where we are now. So we're going to find out. We're going to figure it out, and those are the two spots on offense and defense that I'm the most anxious about, and I think most Bills fans are the most anxious about. But there is reason to be excited and reason to look at the upside of those third-round picks that can come in and make that impact.
Yeah, no doubt. At least in the Mike linebacker, we have several options. If Bernard doesn't work, you still have Dodson, you still have Spectors, you have Dorian being developed.
And on that side of it,
DJ Klein,
if you're going to ask anyone to do it when you're surrounded by Matt Milano, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Trey White, Kyer Elam, Taron Johnson, Taylor Rapp, at least you're setting up a guy to be successful. On the offensive line, it's going to be, hey, it might be a rookie second rounder next to you at guard. So we hope that Osiris Torrance does a really good job.
Also, you know what? You got that big time paycheck to be an extra blocker alongside our right tackle.
We'll see. This has been fun. I appreciate it very much, Fernando. It's always a good time jumping out with you.
Man, thank you so much. Spin wanted you to stay until midnight, but maybe next time, Spin.
I appreciate it.
Not today.
I prefer not to get divorced. I got to bide my time.
Yeah, man, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And the Leading the Charge doors are always wide open, not only to you, but to all my Cover One brothers. I really excited when you were able to join, and I hope you can join again sooner rather than later, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya, Greg. Guys, thank you so much. You, Bills Mafia from America, who's been with us all along in English, and I'm gonna continue in Portuguese and translate some of this stuff to Portuguese, so Latin America, Brazil, and other Portuguese-speaking countries can get some feedback from what we talked here. But I'll be back with Leading the Charge on Tuesday in Portuguese, analyzing the schedule. Next Sunday, Leading the Charge with Big O. Jerry Ostrowski will be with us, the former Bills offensive lineman, to especially talk Spencer Brown, Bills O-line, battles inside new guards, rookie, Torrance, different kind of offensive linemen. All offensive lineman stuff with Big O next Sunday. So bookmark it. Don't miss it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that like button. Subscribe to Buffalo Rumblings channel to avoid missing all the Leading the Charge. And so that's it, guys. I will continue in Portuguese a little bit. Thank you so much for joining Spin, who's been active here in the chat, AK Cash, and all the guys who are always here. I really appreciate you. Okay, so see you next Tuesday in Portuguese, next Sunday with Big O in English again, and I'm gonna continue in Portuguese. Go Bills! Mafia, tá aí, muito bom esse bate-papo com o Greg Tompsett, né, cara? Sempre sensacional, traz muito conhecimento, muito entendimento, principalmente de cap, né? E eu fiz essa questão de perguntar para ele sobre, primeiramente, sobre a posição de defensive end, né? Porque é uma posição que eu imagino que hoje é a principal need, né? Se a gente não considerar o Spencer Brown, né, que claramente, né, inclusive terminei falando sobre isso com o Greg, né, gostaria eu de ter tido um treinador no futebol quando eu jogava que me amasse e falasse coisas maravilhosas sobre mim, como o McDermott e o Bean falam sobre o Spencer Brown, né? Richard, go Bills, thank you so much for joining, my friend. Go Bills, see you next Sunday or next Tuesday. Então, Mafia, falei, né? Então, falei, para adicionar um novo defensive end, talvez é a peça final que a gente precisa nesse elenco agora, né? Da maneira que está sendo construído. Como é que a gente pode adicionar? Como é que a gente pode abrir um espaço no cap, né? E aí o Greg falou, né? Eu mencionei, de repente, trocar o Ed Oliver e tal. E aí o Greg mencionou que realmente talvez já tenha passado o momento, né? Dessa troca de trocar o Ed Oliver. Os Bills não devem conseguir muita coisa por ele a essa altura do campeonato, e eu acho que é realmente melhor contar com o Ed Oliver como um pass rusher importante no seu ano de contrato, querendo jogar bem para ganhar dinheiro no próximo ano, e tentar adicionar, ter o Ed Oliver e mais um Justin Houston, e mais um Melvin Ingram, e mais um Robert Quinn, né? Foram os caras que o Greg mencionou como os que ele prefere aí, né? Ou até o Yannick Ngakoue, né? Mas como adicionar um cara desses? Cara, primeiro, qual deles adicionar? O Greg falou, olha, o mais barato, o que sobrar, porque de repente um acerta com o Chiefs, outro acerta com outra equipe, alguém vai sobrar nessa dança das cadeiras, e os Bills vão ter como adicioná-lo o mais barato possível. Mas se precisar abrir 5 milhões para adicionar, dá para você mexer no contrato do Dr. Davis White ainda, dá para você mexer novamente no contrato do Milano, dá para você mexer em alguns contratos aí, estender o Daquan Jones. Então, são algumas opções de jogadores que dá para você mexer no contrato e abrir espaço para adicionar mais um pass rusher como esse. Dá para você cortar ou trocar um AJ Epenesa ou um Boogie Basham, que pode sobrar numa dança dessa de você adicionar mais um veterano. Um desses caras pode sobrar. Então, e até o Siren Neal, né, que é um cara mais especialista realmente para o Special Teams, e com ele perdendo espaço, com o Rap chegando para ter uma possibilidade de níquel, ele era um níquel reserva. A gente vê alguns jogadores aí com o Shorter, outros jogadores com experiência de Special Teams. Talvez o Siren Neal possa se tornar um cara dispensável, e ele sendo dispensado abre um espaço aí de mais de 2 milhões no cap. Então, são algumas possibilidades que os Bills têm para abrir espaço no cap, tá? Da equipe para adicionar um pass rusher como esse. O que eu acredito que vai acontecer? Os caras vão para o training camp com o Boogie Basham, com o AJ Epenesa, que eu mencionei que no Embedded pareceu mais em forma, maior, não tão fraco, tão magro, mais forte, né? E aí o que acontece? De repente, finalmente ele está num corpo ali que ele, quando chegou na NFL, chegou mais pesado. Os Bills pediram para ele emagrecer, para ficar mais rápido. Ele, por um momento, pareceu muito pequeno, muito leve. Agora ele parece num peso ideal para talvez se tornar um cara a mais do que ele tem sido. Que tem sido um reserva bom, teve 6 sacks e meio, é um bom cara rotacional, mas é um cara mais de third down, mais pass rusher, não é um cara que vai jogar como titular e early downs contra a corrida. Então, talvez o Epenesa esteja preparado para isso, talvez o Boogie Basham volte preparado para isso nessa temporada. É uma temporada muito importante para eles. Shaq Lawson vai querer mostrar serviço, mais uma vez indo para free agency, não tendo uma proposta legal para ganhar um bom dinheiro. Os Bills acabaram de assinar do Rookie Minicamp, que eu estava falando antes de falar com o Greg. Os Bills assinaram com o Shane Ray, ex-escolha de primeira rodada do Denver Broncos, né? Estava jogando no Canadá nos últimos 2 anos, no Toronto Argonauts, e o cara vai ter uma oportunidade. Então, assim, se toda essa disputa por posições não pintar um cara que eles se sintam confortáveis de ter como um bom pass rusher para começar como titular enquanto o Von Miller não volta, né, oposto ao Greg Rousseau, e se tornar uma peça importante quando o Von Miller também voltar, porque você tendo mais um pass rusher, você pode trazer o Greg Rousseau para dentro como um pass rusher por dentro, defensive tackle em terceira descida, né? Então, se nenhum desses jogadores jovens realmente elevar o patamar do seu jogo e se tornar essa peça, os Bills podem ir na free agency e buscar um veterano desse e até trocar uma dessas peças aí. Então é algo para a gente ficar de olho. Outros caras que foram adicionados aí nesse Rookie Minicamp foram o linebacker Trevin Howard, tá? Vou até jogar na tela aqui, eu separei o tweet do Buffalo Bills, né? Vou até jogar na tela. Eles adicionaram o Trevin Howard, que ficou famoso pela interceptação que fez pelo Los Angeles Rams, né? No jogo do título da NFC contra o 49ers no ano do Super Bowl. O Trevin Howard é um ex-safety que virou linebacker ali na casa das 220 libras. É um cara nos moldes dos linebackers que os Bills têm hoje no elenco, do Milano, do Bernard, do Dorian Williams. É um cara que teve experiência e jogou de titular pelo Rams em alguns momentos. É um cara que no último ano sofreu com lesões. É um cara que tem experiência de special teams e que tem capacidade de cobertura. Então, assim, na minha opinião, o Trevin Howard não tem garantia nenhuma que vai fazer parte dos 53, gente. Nenhum desses caras que foram adicionados, nem ele, nem Shane Ray, nem o running back novato aqui que foi adicionado, o não draftado, o Bowser, né? Isaiah Bowser, running back não draftado de UCF, power back aí, que, né, 222 libras, que vem para tentar um lugarzinho aí, provavelmente no practice squad. E o Shane Ray aqui, o defensive end que eu mencionei, ex-escolha de primeira rodada 2015 Denver Broncos. Ninguém aqui é garantia que vai ficar no elenco de 53, longe disso, tá? Os caras chegam para competir, tá? E tentar um lugar no 53. Eu vejo o Howard como uma competição, talvez, para o AJ Klein nesse momento, talvez até para o Matakevich, tá? Que é um capitão do Special Teams. Eu acho difícil os Bills abrirem mão, mas é um cara que chega para competir com esses veteranos para ser o piso, sabe? O piso da posição linebacker. Vai ter a disputa com quem te oferece mais potencial. Bernard, Dodson, Spector, Dorian Williams aprendendo a defesa e não deve entrar nessa disputa cedo. Howard, Klein, Matakevich, caras mais experientes, cara com capacidade de special teams. De repente a disputa do Howard é essa, tá? Mas é mais um cara com experiência que chega aí na disputa, né? E o Ray chega na disputa para brigar ali com o Shaq Lawson, com Bug, com Epeneza, com esses caras. A possibilidade de você ter snaps para fazer a diferença, principalmente no começo do ano, é real na posição defensive end. A gente tem Greg Rousseau e a gente provavelmente não vai ter Von Miller cedo. E nem precisa, né? Eu e Greg demos uma olhada na tabela. A tabela começa mais de boa, né? Nos 6, 8 primeiros jogos. Então, o próprio Greg falou, deixa o Von Miller para voltar lá contra o Bengals e dali em diante, né? Voltar bem, não precisa dele antes disso. Então, até lá, você vai ter espaço para algum pass rush aí mostrar o seu valor, ter impacto, e quando o Von Miller voltar, o cara continuar fazendo parte, assim, a todo momento da rotação, tendo possibilidades de snaps no pass rush e tudo mais, porque o Von volta, mas não vai jogar 100% dos snaps. Como eu falei, você pode botar o Rousseau por dentro em jogadas claras de passe e tem mais uma ameaça pela beirada ali como edge, né? Então, tem possibilidade real. E eu gostaria, sinceramente, de adicionar um Justin Houston. O Greg até mencionou que o Eric Turner, lá do Cover One, gosta muito, é a opção favorita dele, o Justin Houston, para essa posição, né? Então, seria legal os Bills adicionar mais um pass rusher mais provado desses, para a gente ter enquanto o Von não volta e depois que o Von voltar também para ajudar, né? Além disso, o Greg manifestou a confiança que ele tem em cima do Kyrie Elam e do Kyrie Elam realmente conseguir dar um passo a mais, se tornar um cornerback top de linha, um cornerback 1, não agora já, obviamente, tão rápido talvez, mas no decorrer dessa temporada e das próximas, né? E quando falado sobre, de repente, uma preocupação contra o Davis White, no sentido de estar voltando de lesão, ele acha que tem muita mais coisas positivas do que negativas desde a volta do Davis White. Ele acha que o pessoal comete um erro, assim, de repente achar que o Davis White, antes da lesão, era um cara totalmente dominante que não cedia nada, e não é bem assim. Até trouxe algumas estatísticas de quantas recepções ele cede por partida e tudo mais. E ele acha que o Trey está muito bem, está no caminho certo, é um cara ainda jovem, ainda pode continuar sendo um cornerback 1 por um bom tempo. Lá na frente eu mencionei, de repente, que pode se tornar um safety no lugar de Hyde Poyer, né? O cara que já conhece a defesa. E a própria transição do Kyle Elam, se começar a se tornar um cornerback 1 mais físico e tudo mais, você ter um Tre'Davious White como cornerback 1A, 1-2, cara, para quem estava com o Danny Jackson, ele vai Wallace quando o Trey se machucou, né? Eu acho que a gente consegue uma produção muito legal da nossa posição de cornerback nessa temporada. E tem ainda o Benford, né, se desenvolvendo, tem o novato draftado agora, temos o Taron Johnson como níquel, então tudo isso está bem interessante. Falamos sobre o Puna Ford, um cara que o Greg ama, mas ele fez questão de deixar bem claro. Gente, não é o Aaron Donald, o cara chega com um papel bem definido, como um nose tackle ali, ocupar espaço, fazer o serviço sujo, que a gente tem visto o Daquan Jones fazer. E aí ele chamou muita atenção, né, do quanto a gente sentiu falta do Daquan Jones, não só contra o Bengals, mas toda vez que o Daquan Jones não está em campo. Então, quer dizer, ele tem que jogar 80%, um cara daquele tamanho, e fica difícil, né? Você não consegue manter ele sempre saudável, fresco, né? Mesma coisa o Jordan Phillips, que foi tão eficiente. Aí eu mencionei que essa semana andei assistindo o jogo contra o Rams, semana 1, o jogo contra o Titans, semana 2. Jordan Phillips sendo dominante, cara. Esse cara saudável é um cara que tem flashes de dominância, né? Então, o Bills precisa manter ele saudável, precisa manter ele assim. Como? Rotacionando ele, usando ele pouco, principalmente cedo na temporada. Então, o Puna Ford chega para pegar uns snaps, você consegue manter 50-50 até mesmo, ou 60-40, o Daquan Jones e o Puna Ford. Você consegue usar o Puna Ford junto com o Daquan Jones em situações de goal line, em situações contra a corrida, né? E você consegue manter esses caras frescos aí e saudáveis, né? Para quando realmente a temporada mais precisa, mais importa, né? Bom, falamos muito de tabela e tal no começo, e eu vou deixar para falar mais de tabela na terça-feira, que vai ser o Lead the Charts todo sobre a tabela, análise da tabela, possível recorde, melhor caso, pior caso, né? Vamos dar uma boa analisada aí na tabela, tá? A partir da terça-feira. Bom, o Greg, quando eu perguntei do Spencer Brown, né? Do quão confiante ele está no Spencer Brown e tal, ele falou realmente que espera que o Spencer Brown possa, saudável, dar esse passo que o Beane e o McDermott esperam, mas não está tão confortável. Ele até comentou que gostaria de um offensive tackle na primeira rodada para empurrar o Brown para esse papel de swing tackle na reserva. Era uma coisa que o Greg queria, era algo que eu não queria, por exemplo, quando eu falava que um cara de primeira rodada chegaria, para ele já botaria o Brown no banco, né? E a gente não vê muito o Beane, o McDermott dando sinais que gostariam de fazer isso. Mas o Greg gostaria de ter trazido já na primeira rodada um tackle e botado, né, o Brown para esse papel secundário. Enfim, a esperança dos Bills é que realmente dê certo, porque não tem muito, né? O Kissenberry não é a resposta. E aí talvez o Bates, esperar que o Bates vá para right tackle e seja passável ali, né? Não é lá a situação melhor do mundo, não é o que a gente vê em todo o elenco dos Bills, que tem muitas possibilidades. Na posição de linebacker, não tem ninguém que te dá uma confiança que vai ser o novo Tremaine Adams, mas você tem vários nomes, um deles deve dar certo, sabe? Na posição de slot wide receiver, você tem Shakir, você tem Hart, você tem o Sherfield chegando, você tem o Kincaid, vai entrar e vai contar como esse papel de slot também. Tenho dúvida no cornerback, você tem o Kyle Elam, você tem o Benford, né? Você tem o Danny Jackson de volta, você tem um novato. Então, assim, todas as posições os Bills trouxeram muita gente. Pass rusher, você ainda tem expectativa com o Boogie Basham, com o EJ Peneza, Shaq Lawson num piso, Shane Ray agora chegou, você tem possibilidade de trazer um free agent. Tackle não está muito por aí, nem na free agency não tem muita gente. O Greg mencionou o Fleming, né, como uma possibilidade, Cameron Fleming, mas ainda assim não é lá um upgrade. Então fica essa questão, né, e essa expectativa com o Spencer Brown. E no domingo que vem eu vou estar com o Jerry Ostrowski, que é aqui do Buffalo Rumblings também, né, e participa ali com a Sarah do Line to Gain, a Sarah que em breve vai estar também aqui no Leading the Charge, tá? E no domingo que vem o Big O vai estar com a gente, então, e eu vou aproveitar, né, segundo ex-jogador a participar, né, pós Steve Johnson, o Jerry Ostrowski que vai estar aí, ele que jogou com o Ruben Brown, jogou em linha, né, com o Ruben Brown, com o Kent Hull, com alguns caras históricos aí no Buffalo Bills ali dos 90. Vou aproveitar muito essa vinda do Big O para conversar sobre linha ofensiva, as disputas no interior, a expectativa dele, o trabalho do Cromer, o Spencer Brown, sobre o Torrance como novato, tipos de corpo diferente de linha ofensiva, né? Os métodos, as estratégias do Cromer e da própria linha dos Bills. Então vamos aproveitar bastante essa vinda do Big O aí para a gente trocar uma ideia sobre linha ofensiva no domingo que vem. Nessa terça, então, análise da tabela aprofundada, jogo a jogo, tentar ver qual o possível recorde dos Bills para essa temporada. Essa é a programação para essa semana do Leading the Charge, tá? Deixa seu like aí, não vai embora sem deixar seu like, não vai embora sem se inscrever no canal do Buffalo Rumblings para não perder nenhum Leading the Charge, agora exclusivamente no canal do Buffalo Rumblings. Não abandona lá o canal do Fernando Schmude também, que eu vou estar jogando sempre conteúdo lá também, em breve também fazendo o preview aí das outras equipes da divisão também lá no canal. Isso vai ser conteúdo exclusivo do meu canal, então fica de olho lá, já tá lá os vídeos da minha análise de cada escolha, os cortes aqui do Leader Chart, lancei lá, né? E alguns projetos para o canal do Fernando Schmude também. Segue o @Fernando Schmude no Twitter, né? Segue o FH1S Live lá no Twitch e o Bills News BR no Instagram, é onde eu estou atualizando tudo que é notícia sobre Bills em português diariamente, tá, gente? E agradeço muito o pessoal que já colaborou com o Pix, fernandoschmude@hotmail.com, você que patrocina, você que permite, que me dá condições de poder estar aqui dedicando tempo ao canal e produzir conteúdo sobre Bills em português. Então, muito obrigado à colaboração de todos vocês que já ajudaram com qualquer valor. Muito bem-vindo sempre, muito obrigado. Fica aqui meu agradecimento a todos. E é isso, Mafia. Foi muito legal poder contar com o Greg. Obviamente, quem entende melhor em inglês aqui, de repente conseguiu contar melhor, mas deu para dar uma pincelada aí por cima desse bate-papo legal com o Greg Tompsett aí do Cover One, trocando essa ideia sobre o estado dos Bills, elenco dos Bills, tabela, rookie, minicamp e tudo mais. E só para finalizar, né, o minicamp que aconteceu nesse fim de semana, então, com jogadores veteranos fazendo teste, os novatos, escolhas dos Bills, jogadores que foram assinados não draftados, né, e o minicamp já deu alguns frutos, né, um minicamp que é um lugar onde o Bills achou o Kingsley Jonathan, por exemplo, né, e já os Bills assinaram, então, com o Shane Ray, com o Howard, linebacker ex-Rams, e com o Bowser, o running back do ex-UCF, né, não draftado, novato, um power back aí para disputa. E vamos ver como é que vão ser. Próxima semana tem minicamp, os novatos se juntando aí aos veteranos também, e os Bills continuam a preparação aí na off-season, visando a temporada 2023. Vejo vocês na terça-feira, então, Mafia. Terça-feira, às 18 horas, né? Leading the Charge, falando da tabela dos Buffalo Bills, análise completa da tabela, tá? E domingo que vem, Leading the Charge, novamente com o Big O aqui, Jerry Ostrowski, ex-right guard dos Bills, que vai estar trocando uma ideia com a gente sobre linha ofensiva e analisando o que a gente pode esperar dessa unidade aí, buscando o próximo ano. Beleza, Mafia? Então é isso. Muito obrigado a todos que estiveram juntos, né? E a gente se vê na terça-feira, então, com mais um Leading the Charge, analisando essa tabela aí. Valeu? Então, um grande abraço aí. Até a próxima e Go Bills!